Thank you for coming to End Capitalism's YouTube channel, and thank you for supporting me. And I hope that you'll continue to visit the website, dismantlecapitalismglobally.com. That is dismantlecapitalismglobally.com. I just want to make sure my volume is all the way up. And I haven't been doing a lot of writing on the website, but I have been doing some writing because I plan to write and publish a book about social responsibility. And I'm getting very close. I don't want it to be a big book. It's one of a smaller version book. So I should have that finished by December. And excuse me. So that will be happening very soon. It will be my fourth book. I have published before. I have those books on the website. Actually, my other website, changingali.com, is the other website that I manage. So kind of been writing, doing a lot of that. The year is ending, so there's that questioning of did I do everything that I had planned for in the beginning of the year? So the past few months I haven't made any videos because I've just been kind of, working through the motions of life and putting everything together. So, I hope that you, the audience, you are doing well, that, it's just getting a little bit crazier and crazier out there. There's just so many stories and headlines of just violent encounters. It's like, it just makes you question reality or your perception of reality. Is this what it will always be about? Just violent people. And the media, of course, portraying that as though it is the only source of information that we should have, these encounters, versus analysis of the psychology of violence. Like, why do people kill? Why are people narcissistic? Psychology is just one of those topics that I believe does not get enough coverage because nothing we do is spontaneous. As human beings, we have been molded and shaped based on our experiences. And even in the workplace, we're going to exhibit those ways. At home, we will exhibit those ways. There's no detachment from anything. Though the venture capitalist is going to want you to think that when we enter into the workplace, we're 100% professional, we're 100% work focused. That is not the case. That is not the case at all. We are human beings. We have been hired to do a job, but we are a makeup of cultural ideologies, religious ideologies, all of which are in our neurotransmitters, all of which are embedded in us. And we carry this in every environment that we go to. And we use those lessons from our environment to project ideas, to project our beliefs and our opinions. Psychology is a big part of who we are. It governs a lot of what we do, how we think, and so forth. So that's what I want to talk about because, again, the venture capitalist wants you to think that, oh, everything is all business. We don't have to talk about racism. We don't have to talk about white supremacy as a system. We don't need that because everything is work. It's not. Everything is human life. Everything we do, everything we encounter is about human life. Okay, so psychology is very much an important component of who we are. So I mean, I don't even have to tell you how advertisers use luring advertisements to make us buy stuff. And when we go to the store, of course, we are replaying those. We're remembering those commercials, those that marketing signage, whether it was on a newspaper article or whether it was on our television sets. They know the importance of psychology and they know how it can benefit them. So those advertisers, those businesses, of course, spending billions in advertisements so that they can reach us. They can remind us that we are consumers and that, of course, we're also laborers. They make it a very important agenda of theirs. They, the venture capitalists, of course, to remind us that you are here to buy and you are here to consume. And every minute of the day, there will be some ad to remind us of that. That's psychology. That is what they work with. That's because they understand the importance of tapping into our minds. Once they tap into your mind, well, they can get you to do anything. They can get you to buy anything. Well, that's how the oppressor work also. The oppressor is the venture capitalist. It's the cultural dominance of Europeans after they colonize different territories. There's a psychology to that. Their psychology, of course, the oppressor, how they operate, and there's the psychology of the oppressed. People like me, black and brown people, we are oppressed from a socioeconomic definition. So it's all psychological wiring. It's all psychological. It's mind work, okay? So I'm trying to say it's mind work that is advantageous to the oppressor and disadvantageous to the oppressed people. Because I don't know if I'm sure some of you have read into psychology and different angles, but I want to focus more on psychology in the socioeconomic platform, how oppressed people act among themselves and how oppressors act among themselves. Now, I came across this book and I was almost embarrassed that I had not read this book because it's a much older book. And I came across it just, going through different titles, going through different, websites, trying to figure out how psychology play into our minds. And this book, I have seen it before, but I've never read it. I mean, I'm a reader. I love reading books, but this one was really just a different kind of book, because I've heard like other psychologists and educators reference psychology in the definition of capitalism. Like Dr. Amos Wilson explained capitalism as wanting to separate you. It has to separate you from yourself, your entire being, so that you can accomplish its goal of profit. Capitalism has a psychological effect. And in Dr. Amos's explanation, he says that it will remove you from everything that's important to you, because it wants you to be a consumer. It wants you to always want money and material. And just think of all the scenarios of how people who became rich, detached themselves from loved ones and their environments because, they wanted the world of capitalism. They did not want to be attached to other people who they probably view as poor, or they did not want anything to do with them because at that point they had become rich. So it's that kind of psychology. But the book I'm talking about is called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and it's by Brazilian writer, or educator I should say, Paulo Freire. And this book was written in 1967 to 1968, and it was banned because, of course, Paulo is going deep into that book. It's a short read, and it's free online, so I've been reading it. And he has mastered how we as oppressed people interact with one another, the violence we use against one another for the sake of capitalism, the hate that we sometimes use because capitalism and our oppressor has made us that way. We're constantly trying to reach the status of the oppressor or want or admire them in some way, shape, or form because they have privileges, right? So the oppressed people are in a state of psychological confusion, and we are constantly wanting more access to stuff, or we constantly want more stuff. And for the most part, we use violence to get that. We are mimicking the behavioral pattern of the oppressor. And because again, the oppressor uses violence to dominate. That's the only upper hand they have, is that they're violent. They have artillery, they have military power, and they're not afraid to use it because they want to maintain their premises. So again, it goes back to Frank Fanon, Oppressor Oppress. It chimes in with Paulo's book, chimes in with Frank Fanon's philosophy, an explanation of oppressor oppress. And then Dr. Amos Wilson, who was an American psychologist, also reiterated or reinforced all of those ideas. And I came across his book, Dr. Amos Wilson, The Falsification of African Consciousness, Eurocentric History, Psychiatry, and the Politics of White Supremacy. This book is, I mean, he has written many books before, but this book definitely explains the psyche of Black people to their oppressor, and what is it that we're doing wrong because we're trying to either be like the oppressed person, like the oppressor who is using violence against us, and how we are misidentifying ourselves, for one, and number two, we're violent against each other because our agenda is to be in the status, or at the status of the oppressor. This book you must have. It is just powerful. Like, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, nor do I want to explain things as though I am, but I want you to understand that, again, psychology is part of us. Nothing we do is instant. It is not. It's never a quick. What's the word? Behavior. Everything that we do comes from what we have learned before, how we react to what we've learned, our environments, people, and so forth. So always know that psychology is part of our daily lives. It is part of our social behavioral patterns. It is not to be excused from our physical bodies. It is not to be thought of as some separate entity or some separate way. It is all part of us, our genetic makeup. It is definitely part of how we view other people, our reactions to them. All of it is psychological. So to summarize, psychology is also part of capitalism. It is a big part of capitalism, but it is not to the advantage. It's not to the advantage of us, the oppressed people, because capitalism is not our favor anyway. But the oppressor uses capitalism because they have gained material, they have gained property, and they want to maintain it. So again, that dynamic is still flowing. Oppressor oppress, what the oppressor does and how the oppressor reacts. Always think of these scenarios through the lens of dynamics. How is it that we are interacting? Because we are. We're not solo in this world. We're never solo. We're not individuals per se. We are connected to somebody, to something, and we're definitely connected to the mind and to a spiritual form. If you're the kind of person who believes in spirit, in a spiritual definition, so always think that capitalism is not just the physical components of, having cars and homes and, all of that. It is inner. It comes from an inner yearning, an inner meaning that has been placed there in our minds, that in order for us to be considered valuable to the world, we must have riches. We must have that mansion, those 20 cars, what have you, whatever, jewelry and all that. All of that is in our minds, and it's been implanted there by the oppressor, who wants us to think that this is the only validation you need in this life, or else you are nobody if you don't have those things. But of course, you have to think beyond what the oppressor wants you to think. You have to know that the oppressor works on an agenda, a material attainment agenda. And while I understand that we also have to have homes and we have to have cars, I get it. We have to have jobs. Let's not let that consume us. Let's not let that be the complete version of us. And let's think differently. Let's think of preservation. Let's think of everything away from greed and waste. And that's when we become the different human beings that we are supposed to be. We're not supposed to just fall in line because of other people's ways. We're supposed to question and have dialogue with other people so that we can have greater understanding. Thank you for stopping by. I hope that you'll continue to be that person who is doing things a little bit differently, who isn't thinking in terms of stereotypes and biases, who is thinking beyond that to look at other people and how they are living through this world. Thank you again.